How you doing, folks? Welcome to the Prep Football Preview presented by FriendshipCars.com. I'm Kenny Hawkins along with Jesse Crawl, and we're going to take a look at Week 8 and Week 7 in Southwest Virginia, another strong night of high school football. So let's begin with game number 1 on tonight's slate. That's going to be West Ridge and David Crockett. Once again, we're talking about two teams that are in two different divisions. West Ridge, obviously 6A. David Crockett's 5A. Obviously, that's not stopped David Crockett so far this year. They've had a pretty tough schedule and done really well. You've got a West Ridge team coming in at 3-2. You've got a Crockett team coming in at 4-2. Let's look at West Ridge. They went on the road last week and got a big win over William Blount.
Yeah, and I think what you really have to look at is Ethan Bergeron. The kid's an absolute unit. If you haven't seen him up close, it's pretty outstanding to see that. I mean, I was just interviewing them this past week at their practice, and he comes up and someone I forgot who it was kind of ribbing on him, saying, if you gain a couple more pounds, we probably could put you at the left tackle position. And that's what it is, though. I don't know if that's a rip on him, but I mean, he's that big, but he's that agile as well. And that's the surprising thing too, is that a kid that big is being able to move that fast and that well, and not even just move that well, but throw that well as well. But that run game, though, is lethal. I mean, they're just deadly in the trenches. I mean, 353 rushing yards last week against William Blount. Obviously, Ethan Bergeron, a huge part of that, coming under center. But Cale Bryan was also a pretty big running back as well. But when you look at this offense, I mean, they're pretty, I wouldn't say even, but they've got some weapons on the outside as well. They can throw the ball down the field if they really want to. Isaac Haney, Austin Reiner are two wide receivers to look for in this game because they can make some big plays as well. But if they stack the box with Ethan Bergeron, I mean, he's able to throw it over the top.
When you take a look at the numbers for Bergeron, they're really kind of pedestrian. I mean, he's got like 601 yards in the air, and he's rushed for 573. Or more yet, maybe I should say they're really balanced, okay? It's not one or the other. And you just talked about his game last week. He had 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, or should I say 2 in the air and 1 on the ground. And as you mentioned, Cale Bryant scoring one of those touchdowns as well. And Bergeron, I don't know if you've ever heard of Byron Leftwich, which is obviously the offensive coordinator now in the NFL. He's a big boy, too.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly.
He was able to get it done.
He's moving. He's got some wheels on him.
He's a big boy. I mean, don't crush on the big boys, okay? I'm always going to take up for the big boys, especially there at the position that I once played long time ago, but we won't get into that. But anyway, we had an opportunity to talk to the Wolves head coach and their players about this upcoming game against David Crockett.
Well, very well coached, play great defense. Number 4 plays a little running back, plays a little receiver, plays quarterback some. He's an outstanding player. So they've got playmakers all over the field. We're going to have to play one of our better games.
It's another good test for us this year. We've had a good test week in and week out every week. We've got to come out and play football and prove what we've been working on.
The receiver is very athletic, but also have a lot of confidence in our guys. So I think we'll be all right.
We got to establish our dominance in the line of scrimmage and prove that we can run the ball and punish them when we need to.
Well, the next game's always the most important, and I know that's coach speak, but as you're building a program, those wins just continue to step on each other and get you where you want to be.
And he's right. I mean, that is coach speech. Every coach here would say that if we had him on the show tonight. The next game, the most important game is the next game. Let's talk about David Crockett. I mean, where do you start? I mean, obviously, Brendan Reed, he's been the bell cow so far this year for this Pioneer football team. They come into the game at 4-2.
Now, when talking to these guys, too, they were motivated. I mean, obviously, a couple weeks ago, Dobbins Bennett, another 6A school, it didn't really pan out the way they thought it would, but they're ready for vengeance. I mean, they know they got that chip on their shoulder that, hey, just because we're out in Jonesboro, that little David Crockett school, doesn't mean we can't take down the bigger teams. And like you just mentioned, Brendan Reed, I mean, that kid's an absolute unit on offense and defense. He gets it done. And I forgot the stats, but his defensive numbers are crazy, just like his offensive stats as well. Obviously, he's one of the best kids in our area as well, so you're going to have to key on that
59.
on him. Exactly, right?
Stops for strong safety. He's kind of like, and sorry to interrupt you, but to me,
good.
he's and he had an interception last week that he returned for a touchdown, 54 yards. But to me, he's kind of like an Swiss Army knife.
Oh, everywhere.
Okay, he can do everything. You can open up a can. You can eat some beans with it. I mean, the kid's got 1,000 yards rushing, passing. and receiving, all that together, all-purpose yards, he's got over 1,000. And then, of course, you just heard me say he's got 59 stops from his strong safety position. Obviously, an all-around good player for this team. But other than Reed, another guy that West Ridge is going to have to keep their eye on is going to be John Rucker. He took a what was it? Get my spectacles on real quick. 98-yard kickoff. Had to double check that. He took a 98-yard kickoff back in the second half. So both of these guys have been dangerous for Crockett.
And John Rucker is an absolute specimen in the secondary. I mean, the kid just gets up for the ball. He's a ball hawk. He's able to lock down the top wideout. Someone like Isaac Haney or Austin Reiner, some of those kids that he can shut down and take out of the game plan. He's that good. And flipping over to the other side of the ball, yeah, he is that good on offense as well. So those two kids just absolutely are just leading this unit right now. Now, Jake Fox, nothing to take away from him. He's the man under center as well. He's had a solid season as well. But Jordan Williams is also a pretty good guy. But I think the biggest thing that we can take away from last week's 45-0 win over Cherokee is that there's plenty of turnovers. And I think that's how you're going to beat this West Ridge team, because if they're able to out-physical you, man, you. I'm not a dictionary, I tell you that much. I don't even know what word I'm going for there. But if you're being able to, win that battle in the trenches, if you're West Ridge, which obviously has a lot of big kids, it's going to be tough for David Crockett to get those turnovers. So if they can shut down those trenches and be physical against this West Ridge team that has a lot of guys that are big, including Bergeron, I think that could prove to be a good point for them.
And one group of guys that we really don't give a lot of mention to, really. I mean, we do a drive-by every now and then, but it's probably Crockett's offensive line. I think they have – I remember at the very beginning of the season, we talked about the fact when this group grows up, becomes a little bit more mature, they're going to be pretty tough. And I think they're at that spot now that we're about 6, 7 weeks in, 8 weeks in, I guess. I think they're at this spot now. And not just the offensive line, defensive line as well.
And they got some big kids. I was just walking the sidelines a couple weeks ago, and I was walking by. And there's some teams, we always talk about this, there's some teams where you kind of can't tell who the offensive lineman is. Yeah, there's one big kid, there's another big kid, and No, this David Crockett team has absolute hog mollies. There's some big kids up there. They've been to Golden Corral, I can tell you that much.
Oh, without a doubt, and they definitely go back several times. I mean, let me tell you. I mean, obviously Casey Marler morning here used to do sports, and I was around when his kid was a little kid, Trey, who's now on the offensive line. If you would have told me Trey was going to be the size he is now, I would have told you you're crazy. There ain't no way. Unless he go catch a cow in the field. There's no way he's going to be that big. But he's a big kid. And they got some big kids on that offensive defensive line that I think have been stepping up. So I don't want to leave them out of the mix. We had an opportunity to talk to Hayden Chandley and his players about this upcoming football game against West Ridge.
Yeah, we expect physicality. That's what they hang their hat on. They want to come in here and try to run the football. And, we're going to try to match their physicality and give them a +1. But, it's going to be an extremely great challenge for us, especially up front. You face a wing T top team like them. It always presents a challenge because you don't see that week in, week out. So our kids are excited for the challenge, playing a little bit bigger school, 6A school. So be a good test for us and hopefully help us down the road.
It's going to be very important. They're a very big team. I mean, the new school, they're ready to come out, put a name out for themselves. They've been doing decent to all these good teams or whatever. But physicality with our team we're gonna have to bump it up a notch.
We expect a really good team. Obviously they're new, so we don't know a lot about them. But from what we've seen, they're a pretty good team, and if we can just go out there and play how we know we can play, I think we'll be pretty good.
So far, we've done a great job of taking care of the football here recently, and we've took the ball away quite a bit. We've got 14 picks in 7 games. Now, they don't throw it too often, but I think if we can force some turnovers while taking care of the football, I think that's going to really give us an advantage.
Physicality, there's that word again.
I was going to say, I didn't try to steal any words from him. I was just trying to, get to the point.
But you know what? Here's the thing. 2 things that stood out to me when listening to them talk about this upcoming game. First of all, the wing T. He's right. You don't see that too often. It's sort of like the options in the SoCon, the triple option.
Yeah.
You don't see it too often with Wofford and the Citadel. So you've got to practice a little harder, a little differently when you face those type of offenses. The other thing, the key thing that he continued to say, and one of the players said it too, is the physicality. I mean, are they expecting West Ridge just to come in and try and out-muscle them Is that reason why they say they need to be more physical?
I think so. I really do. I think Westridge really leans, obviously, heavy on its ground game right there, but Crockett does as well. I mean, they like running the ball too, and we mentioned it before. These teams are really big. They both got some guys up front that can, move the line a little bit. So if they're able to win that battle in the trenches and they're able to, plug those holes or move down the line of scrimmage or, kick out the linebacker on pulling guards, it's going to be I think this game is going to be won on the line of scrimmage. Now, I'm not trying to pull out my coach's talk or anything like that. I just think that's how this game is going to be won. And I think whoever can win the ground game and whoever can get the ball moving from the backfield is going to be able to take this game, because we know both quarterbacks can throw the ball. That's if you need to throw the ball, you need to get out of some trouble. They're reliable. Are they absolutely amazing and throw for 5,000 yards in a season? No. But can they get the job done when they're back against the wall? Most definitely. But they don't want to get their back against the wall. And the answer to that is being able to run the game or run the ground game and being able to shove it down the person's throat.
And one quarterback we have not mentioned is Jake Fox. In the last game against Cherokee, he had 2 touchdowns in the air, and he also had 2 touchdowns on the ground. All right, let's move on to game number 2 on Friday night. That's going to be Daniel Boone taking on Sciential. Once again, we got 2 teams in 2 different divisions. This has always been one of those games that even though Sciential has dominated the series, it's always been one of those games where Boone jumps up and gets them. The last time they played, it was Daniel Boone winning this game against Sciential. But we got 2 teams headed in opposite directions. Let's begin with Daniel Boone, first of all. This is a team only scored 2 points in their last game against CAK.
And that's rough. And also, shout out to them for being able to go on the road. I mean, last week was their first home game. Week 7, 8, what are we in? I mean, that's incredible to be able to do that and be able to, be resilient like that. So shout out to Daniel Boone. But, yeah, I mean, it was a rough loss to CAK last week. You get the safety to start the game, and you think, hey, we're going to be able to get some momentum here. First home game, we got some energy behind us, and then CAK kind of came back and rattled off those 26 points. But they got a lot of talent on this team, and I don't think their record really shows that, which is kind of tough. I know that kind of sounds cliche, but I mean, you got Luke Jenkins, who obviously stepped in a couple of times last year. Aiden Reiner, Landon Kirkpatrick, Will Hamlin, Henry Hamlin. Both those Hamlin bros are absolutely crazy on the defensive side. Both of them bring it, and I think what Sciential really needs to avoid here is a trap game. I mean, that's exactly what this might be looked at as Sciential. Some of these kids might be overlooking Daniel Boone because of that record. You can't be doing that.
Nope.
This Daniel Boone team is solid. They've got tools to be successful. Yep. They've got some big kids that know what they're doing, especially on the defensive front and offensive front. I think that's really their strong suit, is those big boys up front. So I think if Daniel Boone's able to get any momentum going and build off that energy and build off that momentum, I'm not saying that it could get rough for Sciential, but that's what they need to avoid.
Well, let me help you out here a little bit with Daniel Boone, and I'm not making excuses for him. I'm not the apologist. I'm not working in the PR department there in Gray. But their first 4 opponents have gone 18-5. Okay. Second thing, they only played 1 game at home. Unfortunately, that was CAK.
Yeah.
Last week. I mean, they have lost 4 in a row. So it's been a difficult season,
100%,
to say the least. And the schedule has not helped them out as well. But I'm sure this past week, the Jeremy Jenkins and the coaching staff, they've gone back to the drawing board, because you got to figure out a way to be able to move the football. Because if you can only put up 2 points, which, by the way, that could have been a touchdown. I know they called it a safety.
Yeah, I saw that
looked
too.
like a fumble score to me. But, I don't wear the black and white, so, I mean, when I'm on here, I get the call right every time.
Every time.
But looked like a touchdown to me. But you can't have that type of performance against Sciential, or it could be a long night all the way around. And as you mentioned, it's funny because one of the things I heard some of the Sciential players talking about is that Boone's not really a throwing team. I guess they didn't see that Elizabethan game, because they got a guy that can come in there and sling it when he needs to.
Exactly.
I don't know if they're still going with the 2-quarterback set. But they do have that option if they go down that route.
Well, I mean, when we did that game, and I'm forgetting the kid's name, but that touchdown, they came out of the gates, and he slings it downfield like you said, and it's just, I think Daniel Boone, what the Sciential has seen is Daniel Boone's size up front. And when you have a front like that that's able to move bodies like they do, you're going to want to run the ball. And I get that, understandable, but as mentioned before, with some of the other teams, Westridge and David Crockett, it's like you got a quarterbacks, excuse me, like you said, I don't know if they're going to dual threat, but quarterback, it doesn't matter, that are able to throw the ball downfield. So, like I said, if you're Sciential, you can't treat this like a trap game.
Let's move on to Sciential. This is a team I think they finally have caught stride. They come in 4-3, coming off a win on the road last week against Morristown East. Not that the offense was that great. I mean, they were okay, but it was really the defense that probably helped them win this game. They had 2 interceptions for pick sixes.
Oh, no, you just brought it up right there. You mean on the defensive side, they're skilled, like one of the best teams in the area for defensively. I mean, you got Katie Fleeman, you Justin Sutton, Jeremiah Hayes, all these guys know what they're doing on defense. They're ball hawks. They are, get after it, and they're able to stop the run, able to stop the pass. And that's what the Sciential team really needs to do. If they're able to clog up the hole, jam the first 2 levels against Daniel Boone, and being able to be more physical with the Daniel Boone offensive lineman, I think it's going to prove to be a good point. But, offensively, they do have the weapons as well, too. I mean, they've got guys all over the board that are absolute studs. I mean, Baylor Brock, one of the best running backs in our area. The kid is physical, and he's got a great set of wheels on him, too. So if you see his number and you're looking right at it, there's a pretty good chance you ain't going to catch him. So Jackson Diamond, he can sling it around the field. He can toss the rock. Jack and Cole Torbett, those are his 2 wideouts right there. Those are pretty good weapons as well. But what we're seeing from here, I think, is we're seeing a lot of the seniors, which we expected from this team, is that they're stepping up. I mean, you just mentioned they kind of hit their stride. They're kind of getting momentum behind their backs. They got the wins at the sail.
At the right time.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what you want. And I think the seniors are starting to settle in and realize, we can do this. We just got to come together.
And here's the thing. The most important thing about Sciential is you don't look at that 4-3 record. You look at the fact that 3-0 in Region 1 6A. Yep. And being 3-0 has them tied for first place with Jefferson County, who obviously beat Dobbins Bennett last week. Diamond didn't have a bad game last week. He went 17-28 for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh, but he had 2 interceptions in the first half. You never want that. One of them in the red zone. Never want that as a quarterback. And as you mentioned, Cole Torbett, big last week, 6 catches, 128 yards. Jack Torbett, his brother, had 69 yards and another score. So they can definitely put the ball in the end zone. Jeremiah Hayes and Cade Fleeman, as you talked about, authored, as I mentioned at the very beginning, had 2 pick sixes. We had an opportunity to talk to the Sciential Hilltoppers, to a couple of their players, about how they are getting ready to face Daniel Boone.
They have a great defensive line. They have a kid named Will Hamlin, very good, number 51, very good off the edge.
Learning from mistakes from past games and everything, and just getting better as a team.
We're adding in different sets because they're a ground and pound team. They don't throw the ball very good. They're a very running team. Quarterback runs the ball a lot, so we're game planning for him.
We're making sure to get run support on the outside where they run it most, and just to make sure to stop the run. That's what they're best at.
We have confidence now. Our confidence is rising. Our momentum's just picking up. People playing better throughout the season. They just get better throughout the season. We'll play better with no mistakes. So yeah.
And basically a lot of what we said, this is a team that started to pick up momentum, and I think they're starting to pick up confidence. So it would shock me if they're overlooking this game Friday night.
And I think what helps them, too, is I brought up those seniors is, 32, 33, whatever it is. We never could get a direct number on that. But when these seniors are able to realize, we can't overlook this Daniel Boone team, that experience kind of comes into play right there. And when you're kind of looking at the Sciential team, they're really deep. And I think we just mentioned that, running through all the players and being able to talk about what their offense brings to the table. And when you're able to do that, at points it's going to catch up to a team, whether it's Baylor Brock getting stopped on the defensive line. Well, then you're just going to go to the air. And if they're shutting down the aerial attack, then you're just going to go to Baylor Brock, and he can outrun almost any other team. So it just depends on what the Sciential team wants to do against this Daniel Boone team. I know defensively they just mentioned how they like to run the ball. I mean, like I said, when you have an offensive line that big, you're going to run the ball. So if they're able to clog up those holes, stop the offensive lineman from getting out a couple of yards ahead of them, it's going to be a good day for Sciential.
And when you ask how effective Mason Brock has been, no, not Mason. Baylor Brock has been this year, then all you have to do is look at the overall stats as far as rushing in Northeast Tennessee. Only one guy's in front of him. Do I really need to mention his name?
No.
Okay, yeah, he's at Greenville. And that's the reason why I said Mason, because I'm thinking about Gudger there on the top of my mind. But he is leading rushing in the area, and then Baylor Brock is right behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to game number 3. That's going to be Cloudland taking on Unicoi County. Once again, 2 teams, 2 different divisions. Obviously, we know that Cloudland, they take on all comers. They did last week by beating West Green. This week, they take on a Unicoi County team, and that's where we're going to begin. This is a team that is 7-0, and I know we've said this all week, but they, to me, are the surprise in the area.
Oh, I think we've kind of overlooked them a little bit. No knock on Unicoi County coming into the season. You lose a handful of guys that were detrimental to the team last year, but you come into this game and you come into this season specifically, and you kind of put your hands up saying, all right, we missed them. That's fine though, because you know what? We're on that bandwagon now, 6-0, and I mean we're impressed by them right now. But you look at both these teams right now coming into this matchup. Both teams love to run the ball. They love to pound it down your throat and see what happens and play that smash mouth football. And when you look at Unicoi County, obviously you have to start with Nehemiah Edwards. If you see the flow, if you see those locks,
that's a lot of locks.
You ain't gonna catch them. I can tell you that much.
You like to say that's a lot of lettuce.
Yeah, that's a lot of lettuce, baby. But that's what I'm saying. If you see those hair, if you're looking at him and you see that hair, it's game over. He's gonna take it to the end zone right now. And obviously that's the one time. One time he got stopped. Rarely he gets stopped like that. But Bryson Peterson's also a pretty good option at quarterback. He's a good job as well. When you look down the list of just players on this offensive side, you got Ty Johnson as a wide receiver, who's also pretty good. I could be butchering this name. Call me out if I am. But another running back, obviously they have Nehemiah Edwards, but another running back is Caleb Pelez, Pelaeez, Pelez. No, nonetheless, hey, if I hear it on the loudspeaker, we're going to be definitely getting that name right. I'll tell you that much. So he's also a great guy on the offensive side, but no, just defense. I think what this team has really done well, and Nehemiah Edwards obviously takes a lot of credit for this team most of the weeks, but I think this defense is performing pretty well. I mean, Chucky Doak isn't a team that you can just roll over. They've had a bit of a rough year, but just holding them at 12 points, it's pretty solid. So, shout out to, I'm just reading down the list right here, Isaiah Smith, Garrett Gaddy, Ty Owen, Lucas Slagle, all those guys have been on the defense and just been tearing up opposing offenses.
Well, Unicoi County comes in ranked 8th in the state in Class 3A. And as you mentioned, Edwards in their last game ended up with 2 touchdowns. They are Class 3A, and they're getting ready to take on Class 1A in Cloudland. And last week up at Orr Field, they took on West Green, who's a bigger school. Mm-hmm. And West Green's had a pretty good season as well, but Cloudland was able to win this contest. A good Cloudland team. Obviously, I think Zach has done a tremendous job. I keep going back to the fact that at the beginning of the year, when he stated that he basically had like 16 players, and he wanted to get up to like 22 or 26. And he said, well, that'll usually happen once school starts. And I guess you walk down the hall, you start telling guys, hey, listen, I need you to come out and play football. Or maybe, hey, extra credit if you play football. I don't know. But he got his numbers up, and this team is playing really well.
And they got a lot of momentum, man. And obviously it all starts in the backfield. Just like Unicoi County, you got Seth Birchfield. The kid's an absolute monster, just chewing up yards left and right. 493 total yards of offense. Now, that's not just coming from Birchfield. Let me reiterate that, because obviously if that kid did 493 total yards, that's a state record. That's probably a national record, something like that. But, you got other running backs and options as well. Caleb Sluter is also a good job. He's been doing a good job this season. Chase Shell, he's also a good option at quarterback. He can, work it around the field if he needs to be. But a lot of this time, if you're able to shut down Seth Birchfield and Cloudland, no knocker against those 2 guys I just mentioned, but you're probably going to come out on top.
I thought this was a tale of 2 halves. I thought the first half was a half that West Green controlled. But I thought in the second half, I thought Cloudland's defense really stepped up and shut West Green down, and I thought that was the reason why they were able to get a victory in that contest. I think this is going to be a great matchup. I don't care if it's 1 against 3. You got 2 football programs that play with a lot of pride. Unicoi County wants to run the record of 7-0 or 8-0, whatever it is. And, of course, Cloudland wants to say that, once again, they're David, and they can take down Goliath again. So we'll have to see. All right, let's head to Southwest Virginia. We go to Game 4 of tonight. And that's going to be John Battle taking on Y Central. And let's go ahead and begin with Y Central. This is a football team that has played pretty good this year. John Battle, on the other hand, they've had their moments, but it has been a struggle. Let's talk about why Central. What makes them work?
Well, I think what's going on with them is that they're trying to snap a skid as well. They just lost to Abingdon 28-21 last week. That's their third straight loss. But when you're able to battle with Abingdon and get them within 7 points, I mean, you got to hang your hat on that just a little bit. I'm not the type of person that's all about moral victories, but when you're in a losing streak, you got to find the positives when there's a negative. So, great job by Y Central being able to fight and claw their way against the Falcons. And I don't think I was trying to intend to have a pun there, but nonetheless, that's what we do here. We try to have fun with it. But Ethan Mullins, Tyler Tester, Braden Church, Matt Boggs, Dustin Sturgill, all those kids. Those guys need to pick up their game just a little bit. I'm not saying they were lacking it last week, but play here, play there. You're beating Abingdon, which is one of the best teams in our area, and obviously I think they're going to tie for first place in the conference, if I'm not mistaken. I think if something, I know last week I looked at that, and I didn't look at the numbers tonight, but I think just one of the things that Y Central does so well is run the ball. I mean, that's just what they do, and I mean, it's death, taxes, and Y Central running the ball. That's what it is. So if they're able to move the ball like we expect they will tomorrow night, I think they're going to have a field day.
I think one of the things, too, that has gone against this Y Central team is giving up the big plays. I think they had that problem last week against Abingdon. Obviously, Abingdon has one of the most talented teams in the area. In fact, they're playing tonight against Marion. We should have highlights at 11 o'clock. It should be an easy win for Abingdon. I haven't checked the score. But the Falcons have played really good football. So this was a tough team for Y Central last week, a tough loss to them. So let's talk about now John Battle. We got a John Battle Trojans team, as you just mentioned, and I said earlier, it's been kind of up and down. Some weeks they look like world beaters, and then we see what, who, how, what, they got to be by who. Been one of those situations with the Trojans football team, and I think they're going to have their hands full tomorrow night. And
I think that's the thing with John Battle right now. It's taking it play by play. Like I said, my coach talk is starting to come out, but when you're John Battle and 0-4 or 0-5, I think it's 0-4. I know that COVID losses and all that stuff, and forfeits. It's kind of wonky, but if you're John Battle, you just got to take it play by play, because you're not going to end the losing streak. Just thinking about it and doing it. You just got to be able to do your job and go out there and be able to stop Y Central's run game. And if they turn to the air, which they rarely do, being able to be ready for that. I mean, you prevent any big plays from Y Central. You prevent those big runs, because that can just take the air right out of you. And I think it's one of those things too with John Battle, is that they when you get in a losing streak, it seems like nothing can ever go right.
Yeah.
Why did the ball bounce the other way? Why did they recover the fumble? Why did a punt return go this way? Why, it's just one of those questions where you can't have it answered. It just seems like everything's turning on you. So if you're John Battle, you just really got to go play by play, quarter by quarter, half by half, whatever it may be, because like I said, this winning streak isn't going to end on one play. Losing streak isn't going to end on one play. You're going to have to keep on fighting for this win tomorrow night.
Let's close out the show with our game number 5. To me, this might be the best game of the night in both states. We're talking about Ridgeview taking on Union. Ridgeview comes in unbeaten at 5-0, and you've got a Union football team that is 4-1. Let's begin with Union. They have a long, rich tradition there with the Bears being one of the best teams in the state, and I think that one loss was a narrow loss at that. I mean, this is a good football team. These are going to be two really good football teams going up against each other.
If I remember correctly, that loss was a 1-point loss to Graham that obviously could have went either way. So just one play here, one play there. This is a 5-0 matchup. But yeah, like you just mentioned, Union is 4-1. They're coming off a big win over Thomas Walker. Xavier Lomax, obviously one of the best running backs in Virginia, let alone this area.
Yeah.
That kid can run the ball, and he's built too. I mean, he might not be the tallest kid on the team, but I can tell you this much: he's going to run you right over, and he's built like a Mack truck. So they're obviously going to give the ball to him. And this offensive line, and I said this, week 1 before the season even started. This offensive line is one of the biggest offensive lines I've seen in this area. and not just one kid here, one kid there. It's across the whole line. So they definitely are able to run the ball and run the ball well. So if Ridgeview does want to come on top, they're definitely have to deal with a good helping of Xavier Lomax tomorrow night.
You know, and you talked about last week's win over Thomas Walker. Union came out and jumped out to a 40-0 lead and basically cruised in the second half. I know TW scored 29, but it was pretty much already all said and done. So it's definitely a team, as you just mentioned, Z-Man, who knows how to put the football in the end zone. Now, it's going to be a lot tougher for him this Friday night. This Ridgeview team led by a freshman quarterback. That's right, a freshman quarterback, Ryan O'Quinn. He had 5 touchdowns and 242 yards passing in their last win Friday night. Once again, let me go back. That's a freshman quarterback. 5 touchdowns. Wow. I guess what we need to do is what can he do for an encore?
I was going to say, Coach telling me, and mind you, rewind just a little bit, they lost Trent Atkins from last year. I mean, one of the best areas running backs. I think one of the Virginia's all-time running backs. I mean, I don't know where he was in yards, but, pretty dang close. But, I mean, when you lose a weapon like that, it's going to be hard to rebound, but this team has no problem rebounding. They're bouncing back in a big way, even better than last year. You bring up Ryan O'Quinn. I mean, that kid is an absolute he's a weapon. I mean, that's just what it is. He's able to read the defenses like you wouldn't expect a freshman to. I mean, I don't know how old Arch Manning is, but, hey, let's look out right here. We might have the next Arch Manning in Ridgeview, and now I'm not putting that on him, but we just
you put it on him.
Hey,
we
just got to. Hey, when you're able to lead a 5-0 team, you got a weapon at quarterback right now. But
it's on him. It's like a bad rash right now. It's on him. You put it on him right there.
He's going to come up to me. He's going to live it up to it.
Exactly. Let me mention, this has also been, and you mentioned some of the other names, but I think this has been a balanced team. They had 413 yards in that last game of offense. Cannon Hill rushed for over 150 yards. You had Brandon Beavers. He had about 175 yards, catches, and 4 touchdowns. And then you got Coda Counts, who also put up 55 yards, and he also had 1 touchdown. 413 total yards in offense. That's a lot of offense, and it shows me, or it tells me, this is a balanced team, and Union's going to have their hands full.
And that's also vice versa of what happened with Ridgeview last year. I mean, when you have Trent Atkins, you're probably going to give him the ball 30 times no matter what. Before the game even starts, you know for sure 30 times we're going to give him the rock no matter what he does. Gets 1 yard, 10 yards, 20 yards, doesn't matter. We're going to give him the rock. But you bring up this offense, and when you're that lethal and you're able to spread the ball around, you don't have a lot of teams in the area like that. And especially teams that, we bring up some of these guys, it seems like every week there's a different player stepping up. And it's not just one guy they're relying on like past years, like Trent Atkins. So when you're able to spread the ball around that much and defenses are kind of puzzled to say, who do we got to cover? Who do we need to cover? I know obviously we got to get the pressure on the quarterback, but if the linemen are able to hold him up and hold him up right and, give him enough time, it's going to be deadly. It's going to be lethal, and that's what we're seeing this season. So, Coach was telling me, during our two-a-day segments that if this team gets into a rhythm, they're going to be dangerous. And they've gotten the rhythm. They're getting momentum right now, but I think a win over Union could really prove that, hey, they're the real deal this year.
So a big game Friday night, Ridgeview coming in at 5-0, Union coming in at 4-1. Folks, thanks for watching the Prep Football Preview brought to you by FriendshipCars.com. Make sure to watch us again every Thursday night for a preview of that week's games. Week 8 of Touchdown Friday night is tomorrow, so check out highlights. Week 7 from Southwest Virginia of these games and more tonight. And we want to say thank you to Slater Teague, the engineer. What was he pushing buttons? That didn't sound good last week, so I'm going to make it a little bit more official. Our engineer. And for Jesse Crawl, I'm Kenny Hawkins saying thanks, and hope you watch us tomorrow night on Touchdown Friday night.